Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to look at a really short but incredibly intense letter from the ancient world. And what's wild is that it tackles a problem that feels, well, surprisingly modern. It's basically a battle for the very soul of a community, and it's fought with words that are sharp enough to cut. So just think about this for a second. What happens when the biggest threat to a group's identity doesn't come from some enemy outside the walls, but from influential, charismatic voices on the inside? It gets messy, right? It gets really complicated. Well, this ancient letter, the letter of Jude, it gives us one possible answer to that exact question. And let me tell you, it's not a gentle one. It is a fiery, passionate, and, as we're about to see, a highly controversial defense of what the author believed was the one true faith. To really get what Jude is doing, you have to see how he builds his case. According to scholar Dr. David deSilva, Jude's main strategy was to drive what he calls a rhetorical wedge straight through the heart of this community. He's basically drawing a sharp, unmistakable line in the sand. And this slide right here, this is the key to understanding the entire letter. He splits everyone into two distinct groups. On one side, you've got these people, the insiders he sees as a threat. And on the other side, but you, beloved, the faithful members of the congregation. This stark contrast is the engine of his whole argument. All right, so let's dig in. Who exactly were these people? Jude does not hold back one bit in his description. He paints a very specific and, frankly, a very unflattering picture of these internal opponents. I mean, Jude's takedown of these people is just brutal. He calls them grumblers and fault-finders, people driven only by their own selfish desires. He says they use lofty things, big, impressive words, to flatter people for their own gain. He calls them worldly-minded and, here's the most damning charge of all, devoid of the Spirit. It's a portrait of total, self-serving charlatans. And this quote really gets to the core of his critique. Dr. deSilva points out that Jude isn't just saying they're mistaken. He's arguing they don't even have any genuine spiritual capacity. In Jude's mind, all their claims to visions and special knowledge are just natural instinct. He's putting them on the same level as an animal, just following its base desires. But here's the thing. Jude doesn't just spend his time tearing down his opponents. He spends just as much energy building up his own audience. So in sharp contrast to those interlopers, he gives the beloved a really clear, positive set of instructions on how they should live. Jude lays out this kind of four-step plan for spiritual survival. And notice how active these commands are. You gotta build, you gotta pray, you gotta keep, you gotta await. This isn't about just sitting back passively. It's a proactive game plan for staying true to what you've been taught, guided by the Spirit, not by your own impulses. And all this builds up to the central command of the whole letter, to contend for the faith. But what does that actually mean? It's not just about getting into arguments. As we're about to see, it has two very different but connected sides to it. So here it is, broken down. Contending is both defensive and offensive. On the one hand, the negative side, it means you have to resist the influence of these false teachers. But on the other hand, the positive side, it means you have to actively nurture your own faith and take responsibility for the other people in your community. And this is where Jude's letter gets really challenging for a lot of us today. He's telling his readers to intervene, to get involved, to meddle, you could say, in the lives of people who are starting to stray. And as Dr. deSilva notes, this idea of judging and restoring others really grates against our modern sensibilities. Jude even gives a kind of tiered approach for this. For some people, the ones who are just uncertain, you show them mercy. For others, who are in real, immediate danger, the language gets super urgent. You save them, snatching them right out of the fire. And for others still, you show mercy, but with fear, with a deep awareness of the danger of the sin that's entangled them. It's a really complex, emotionally charged duty. And here's a fascinating little side note. For centuries, ancient scribes actually debated the manuscripts. Some texts list 2 categories of people to restore, while others list 3. But, while they argued over the details, the core message was never in doubt. The community has a job to do, and they have to act with both mercy and a sense of real urgency to keep each other on the right path. So, given how intense and uncompromising this letter is, it's probably no surprise that it has had a very complicated and often very controversial history. I mean, its journey into the Bible was anything but a smooth ride. This timeline gives you a quick snapshot of that journey. Really early on, it was used by other New Testament writers, like the author of 2 Peter.
But then, for centuries, its canonicity, whether it even belonged in the Bible, was hotly debated, partly because it quotes books that aren't in the Bible. Fast forward to the Reformation. Martin Luther, not a big fan. John Calvin, though, he wrote a whole commentary on it. And today, its seemingly intolerant tone makes it a really challenging read for a lot of people.
So why all the debate? What's the big deal? Well, this quote from Dr. deSilva really gets to the heart of it. Jude forces us to ask, where is spiritual authority located? Is it found in the powerful, charismatic, spiritual experiences of any one individual? In their dreams, their visions, their new revelations? Jude's answer to that question is a loud, firm no. For him, true authority isn't personal, it isn't charismatic, and it isn't new. It's located in the shared tradition, the faith that was once for all delivered to the saints, the teaching of the first apostles. Any new idea, no matter how spiritually amazing it feels, has to line up with that tradition. And that right there leaves us with a provocative, timeless question that goes way beyond this one little letter. In any community, in any movement, in any belief system, where does the buck stop? Where does ultimate authority really lie? Is it with powerful personal experience, or is it with a shared historical tradition? Jude made his choice crystal clear, and in doing so, he's forced every generation since to grapple with that exact same dilemma.